Seo Munpyong was in a very good mood. This is because he enjoyed all kinds of pleasures by going in and out of different brothels after entering Chengdu. Won Jiayang hated and criticized his behavior, but Seo Munpyong didn't care. He thought that there was no need to be conscious of other people's eyes. Moreover, it was not as if he was harassing and forcing the women inside the brothel. The courtesans are paid for their services in the brothel, so he had no reason to feel any guilt or remorse. He already has visited around a dozen brothels which were considered the best in Chengdu. So he didn't even think about exploring and visiting the rest. According to Sang Yun, who brought him to the entertainment district of Chengdu, the other brothels are not worth visiting. Whenever Seo Munpyong had the time, he would stop by a brothel and embrace the best courtesans in his arms. He is a young and handsome man. In addition, he is a warrior who has made a name for himself. There was no way that the courtesans would refuse such a man. At each brothel, the courtesans would clamor to enter Seo Munpyong's room. So among the prostitutes who came willingly by herself, Seo Munpyong would choose prostitutes that fit his taste and would enjoy her all night long. But it was starting to get boring. All the members of the Golden Heavenly Hall, who had decided to meet in Chengdu, have arrived, so Seo Munpyong now has to distance himself from nightlife. Seo Munpyong thought that he would enjoy one more day before going back to Jingjiamwu. On the other hand, it was a shame. Among the people who entered Chengdu with him, there was no one who enjoyed the nightlife entertainment as much as he did. Jingjiamwu was not interested in women to the extent that he was rumored to be a wooden stone, while Nung Son showed more interest in decorating rather than enjoying the presence of a woman. More so with the ladies of their group, Won Jiayang and Li Soha. Li Soha still seemed to understand Seo Munpyong to some extent, but Won Jiayang blatantly showed her displeasure. In the end, Seo Munpyong was alone in exploring the pleasures of a woman. Where should I go? After thinking carefully, Seo Munpyong decided on his destination. The place he went to was Divine Fragrance Pavilion. The said brothel was more memorable for him because it was the place he visited with Sang Yun on the first day he came to Chengdu. Seo Munpyong entered the Divine Fragrance Pavilion without hesitation. "Welcome, young Master Seo Munpyong." The General Secretary rushed out to greet Seo Munpyong. Seo Munpyong was a distinguished guest. He was popular with the courtesans since he generously spends money without thinking, so all the courtesans who had served Seo Munpyong before were always waiting for him to visit. There was no reason to turn away a distinguished guest who greatly contributed to their sales. "We've been waiting for you to come, young master." "Haha. Rather than me, you must be waiting for my money." "Oh, of course not. All the ladies who served young master Seo Munpyong stay awake every night waiting." "Shall I call for them?" "No. I want to see some new girls today." "Okay. I'll bring other ladies, so feel free to choose the ones you like," as expected of the General Secretary. Seo Munpyong smiled and patted the secretary's shoulder. The secretary led him to the most splendid room in the Divine Fragrance Pavilion. Before entering the room, Seo Munpyong's eyes suddenly widened. Because he happened to see a woman walking on the other side of the hallway. Her hair was curled up to show the nape of her neck, her red lips contrasted with her black eyes, and her skin was as pure as snow. The beautiful woman could be said to be incomparable to any other courtesans he had seen in Chengdu. The woman in a red silk robe was slowly walking without paying attention to Seo Munpyong. Seo Munpyong asked the secretary in a hurry. "Who is that woman?" "Oh, her? No, I'll find out for myself." Seo Munpyong strode toward the woman without waiting for the secretary's answer. "No. You can't. She's the brothel keeper of the Divine Fragrance Pavilion." "Then that's even better. I heard that the Madam of Divine Fragrance Pavilion is the best courtesan in Chengdu." The secretary seized Seo Munpyong by the arm. However, a mere secretary could not stop the advance of a warrior like Seo Munpyong. Seo Munpyong dragged the secretary on his arm. The secretary hurriedly spoke, "The madam doesn't anymore accept regular customers." "How can I accept that?" But madam, oh, my. At that moment, Seo Mun Pyong swung his arm. The secretary, who was hanging on his arm, flew far away and rolled on the floor. If you try to stop me again, I'll break your wrist. Seo Mun Pyong said, staring at the person lying on the floor. The secretary couldn't say anything. He could only huff in response. Seo Mun Pyong, who easily shook off the secretary, ran in the direction where the woman disappeared. Fortunately, the woman did not go very far. Hey! Seo Mun Pyong grabbed the woman by the wrist. Ah! The woman screamed instead of answering. Because her wrist hurt so much. But Seo Mun Pyong continued to talk regardless of what she felt. Are you the madam here? That's right. The woman answered cautiously. She was Su Hyang, the madam of the Divine Fragrance Pavilion. Seo Mun Pyong looked at Su Hyang's whole body up and down. You're definitely on a different level. So beautiful. Thank you for the compliment, but please let go of my hand. Do you want to have a drink with me tonight? I'm sorry, but I'm now retired from the front line. Retired? Yes. It's already been a long time since I last served a customer. I'm now just in charge of overseeing the management of the Divine Fragrance Pavilion. You can choose other courtesans, besides me. There are many other beautiful ladies in the Divine Fragrance Pavilion. Nope. Pardon? I really want to have a drink with you. Seo Mun Pyong's eyes gleamed with desire. The more difficult a girl was to have, the more obsessive he became. That's exactly what is happening with Seo Mun Pyong now. All the other prostitutes in Chengdu were excited to be with him, but Su Hyang, who was in front of him, refused his invitation, making him want her even more. Su Hyang shook her head. Don't do this, young Master Seo. You know me? Then you must know my personality too. I'm extremely nice to those who obey me, and merciless to those who oppose me. Forcing me would not change my mind. Su Hyang said with an earnest expression. After being saved by Pyo-woo, she withdrew from the front line. Even if she was well-suited and skilled as a courtesan, she only wanted to serve Pyo-woo. Seo Mun Pyong's eyes changed sharply. He wasn't used to being rejected. Since he's rarely been rejected, he might have looked like a good person. Of course, there was no need to be temperamental, if most of the people he encountered would follow him immediately. That's also the reason why people called him the romantic guest. But Seo Mun Pyong was not a good person. He just looked like one. In Seo Mun Pyong's mind, he was only thinking of possessing Su Hyang. If you continue to decline, the Divine Fragrance Pavilion may not be able to operate again after today. What? I'm going to destroy the Divine Fragrance Pavilion. If a person with a high reputation like young Master Seo would do such an act, you would be criticized by Jianghu. Are you all right with that? What about it? A person with a reputation like mine won't be criticized just because of a trivial accident. They would rather sympathize with me and say you deserved it. Su Hyang's threat did not work on Seo Mun Pyong. No one could control Seo Mun Pyong. Su Hyang closed her eyes tightly. Should I just agree? If the Divine Fragrance Pavilion collapses, it will cause damage to Pyo-woo. She thought that it wouldn't be too bad if she could get some useful information by sacrificing her own body. She was a courtesan anyway. There was no such thing as the idea of chastity. But she still didn't like it. The head and mind acted separately. It seemed that there was a gap inside of her while serving Pyo-woo. Oh well, in the end I am still a courtesan. I have been forgetting my duty ever since I've met Pyo-woo. Su Hyang made a decision. She was going to serve the guest in front of her. I'm going to. Su Hyang. At that moment, she heard an indifferent voice. Unlike Seo Mun Pyong's passionate voice, it was a cold voice that didn't even contain any emotions. Su Hyang and Seo Mun Pyong turned their heads and looked in the direction where the voice came from. A man was standing there, a man wearing a red long robe. While he wasn't an extremely handsome man, he was still an impressive man with an above-average appearance and exceptionally white skin. Just by hearing his voice, she knew that the man was Pyo-woo. She knew that Pyo-woo often changed his face, depending on the situation. Although his current face is different from the face she knew, Su-hyang managed to confirm his identity through his voice. Su-hyang shook Seo Munpyeong's hand away and bowed her head. This girl Su-hyang meets her master. Master? Seo Munpyeong's eyebrows twitched. He was displeased that the courtesan he fancied was calling another man her master. Seo Munpyeong looked at Pyeowul. Are you the owner of this brothel? That's right. Then you should educate these prostitutes properly. How could a prostitute dare to refuse a customer? I don't force them to serve anyone. I leave them to their judgment. Do you mean that the courtesan chooses who they want to serve by themselves? Because they are human too. Seo Munpyeong's eyebrows twitched. Because Pyeowul's words sounded like he was sarcastic, Seo Munpyeong held back his anger and asked, "What's your name?" You don't need to know. What? I am not obligated to give you an answer just because you asked. Huh. It's been a while since I've become this angry. Seo Munpyeong ran his hand over his head. Thinking that he had been ridiculed by a mere owner of a brothel, his anger rose to the very top of his head, making his face red. He now lost his interest in Su-hyang. His anger was now directed at Pyeowul. Seo Munpyeong strode towards Pyeowul. A dominant aura started flowing from his whole body. Seo Munpyeong was called the Little Boxer. His aura was really strong, so there were not many people of his age who could stand up against him. Seo Munpyeong had no intention of hurting Pyeowul. He was just thinking of putting pressure on him to make him realize and repent for his behavior. He was confident that if the owner of the brothel faced and felt his aura, he would immediately kneel down and pee his pants. However, contrary to Seo Munpyeong's thoughts, there was no change in expression on Pyeowul's face, who was experiencing his intense energy. Rather, it was Seo Munpyeong who had a change in his expression. It looks like you've mastered a bit of martial arts. If the opponent has mastered martial arts, the story would become different. He now has an excuse to hurt him. Seo Munpyeong raised his fist. A mighty force was contained in his fist. Bang! The walls and the furniture in the hallway were shattered. Ah! Seeing the scene, Su-hyang screamed involuntarily. It was because in her eyes, it looked as if Pyeowul was going to be seriously injured at any moment. However, Seo Munpyeong's eyes, the person who actually threw the fist, were shaking uncontrollably, because Pyeowul had disappeared from his sight. Bang! Only the stubborn wall was smashed in his fist, leaving a large hole in it. Seo Munpyeong felt a cold breath on the back of his neck. Pyeowul suddenly moved behind his back and stuck closely to him. When? A look of disbelief appeared on Seo Munpyeong's face. He was a top-notch master. At least among his peers, there weren't many warriors who could overwhelm him. Even if their technique was higher than his, there was no one who could deceive his senses like this and sneak on his back. For a warrior to have his back exposed was the same as putting his life into the hands of the enemy. Bastard! Seo Munpyeong screamed and tried to turn around. Puc. At that moment, something cold dug into his waist. And he heard a whisper. You'll have to risk your life if you want to covet someone by force, don't you?